If you've been scrolling through endless mixer listings, watching video after video trying to figure out whether a 32-channel board is really worth the space on your desk, you're not alone. Most of us have sat at a kitchen table with a laptop, a few microphones, and a vague idea that more channels equals more freedom, only to wonder if the extra bus routing and extra knobs will actually solve any real problem in our setups. I've been there, and I know the feeling of that uneasy hesitation. What if you spend a good chunk of cash on a mixer that ends up gathering dust because it's too big, too complex, or just the wrong flavor for what you need? That's why today's review is all about cutting through the marketing noise and seeing if the Mackie VLZ4 Series 32-channel for Bus FX mixer actually delivers value where it counts. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of environment where a mixer of this size starts to make sense. If you run a small to medium live-sound gig, a rehearsal space that doubles as a podcast studio, or a community radio station that needs to juggle multiple hosts, musicians, and callers at the same time, the extra channel count can be a real lifesaver. I've seen a church worship team that moved from a 16-channel analog board to a 32-channel VLZ4 and suddenly had the flexibility to split the drum kit, guitars, keyboards, and vocals into their own dedicated mixes without having to constantly repatch. The 4 bus outputs let them send a main front-of-house mix, a monitor mix for the stage, a recording feed straight to a laptop, and even a separate mix for a live stream all simultaneously. That kind of routing convenience is exactly where the VLZ4 starts to shine. Now, who should actually consider pulling the trigger on this mixer? The sweet spot is anyone who already knows they need more than a handful of inputs and who values having a clean, low-noise signal path. The Onyx Mic Preamps, which Mackie touts as boutique quality, really do feel smoother than the generic preamps you get on entry-level boards. When you hook up a condenser vocal mic for a podcast interview, the hiss is practically invisible, and the gain knob offers a comfortable 60 dB range that lets you pull a strong signal without chasing the noise floor. That same preamp character is why a few local radio stations have chosen the VLZ4 for their own air boards. The improved RF rejection helps keep static and interference at bay, especially when you have a lot of wireless mics buzzing around a venue. If you're a home studio hobbyist who only records a couple of acoustic guitars and a vocal track at a time, this is probably overkill. You'll end up with a lot of unused channel strips, a larger footprint, and a price tag that could buy you a solid audio interface plus a couple of decent compressors. Similarly, if you're looking for a mixer that doubles as a DJ controller with built-in beat matching or performance pads, you'll be disappointed. The VLZ4 is built for traditional multi-track mixing, not for DJ-style queuing or loop manipulation. Let's get into the practical strengths that actually matter when you're pulling the unit out of the rack and into a live setting. The first thing you notice is the layout. Mackie kept the channel strip widths consistent, so you can glance across the board and instantly locate the fader you need. The 4-bus selector knobs sit right where you'd expect, and the built-in effects return is a modest but handy addition if you want a quick reverb on a vocal without having to route to an external processor. The dedicated inline compression on channels 25 through 28 is a thoughtful touch for those who need to tame dynamic sources like kick drums or bass guitars on the fly. In real-world use, I've seen a small club sound engineer use those compression channels to keep the low end tight during a fast-paced punk set, and the results were noticeably cleaner without needing a separate compressor rack. Another practical win is the USB connectivity. The VLZ4 can stream all 32 inputs directly to a DAW, which means you can record a full multi-track session without buying a separate audio interface. The latency is low enough for overdubs, and the driver installation is straightforward on both Windows and macOS. For a community theater that records rehearsals for archival purposes, this eliminates a whole extra piece of gear and reduces cable clutter. The phantom power on all mic inputs is also truly 48V, so you can trust condenser mics to power up reliably, even if you have a rack full of them. On the flip side, there are a few hidden trade-offs that buyers should be aware of before they commit. The mixer's size and weight are not negligible. It's a full-size analog board that needs a sturdy rack or a dedicated tabletop. If you're cramped in a home studio, you'll need to carve out space that could otherwise be used for monitors or a larger computer. The analog nature also means you don't get